Pat Kelsey has a new commitment.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Friday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my sixth year covering U of L, fourth year hosting this show. Of course, Locked On Louisville, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network on planet Earth. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code Locked On College for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. We have a jam-packed Friday edition of the show for you all today. Louisville men's basketball back in action against Cincinnati tonight. We'll have the full preview for that game. The football team looking to turn things around on Saturday against SMU, and they're going to have to do so missing multiple key players. We'll discuss the bleak injury report that was released on Thursday night. But before we get into those two topics, the Louisville men's basketball program has a new commitment. 2027 power forward Ferlandes Wright has committed to Pat Kelsey's program. What he brings to the team, what various coaches have said about him, the possible role that he could play, and much more coming up in the first segment. I thought that we should start out this conversation by telling you a little bit more about the Cardinals' new commitment. Ferlandes Wright is going to be in his junior season. He is a 2027 recruit, 6'7", 220-pound power forward, ranked, according to 24/7 Sports, as the 149th best prospect in the country, top 20 player at his position. Now, to me, he's a local recruit. He's from the city of Louisville. He played his freshman season at W.E.B. Du Bois, sophomore year at Fairdale, and now he has transferred to La Lumiere, which is in Indiana. Despite that, he's a local recruit, in my opinion. So I want to read to you a couple of texts that I got on Thursday night. Now, one of these texts is from a guy that has coached Wright, and one of the texts is from a guy who has coached against the team that Wright has played on. One of his former coaches said this, and I quote, "He's one of the hardest workers I've seen. He's very versatile and stays in the gym. He deserves everything he gets and has worked hard to get to this point. He's as good on the wing as he is in the paint," end quote. Now, a good friend of mine who has coached against him echoed those same sentiments. He basically said, paraphrasing here, that even though he's raw as a prospect, the upside is very real and he has an incredible motor. And I've watched a couple of Wright's games announcing the King of the Bluegrass over the past couple of years. Fairdale, of course, hosts that tournament over the holiday break and got to see Wright play. And everything that his former coach said checked out when you watched him play. As a sophomore, he averaged 18 points per game, 12.6 rebounds per game, 61% from the field. And what's even more encouraging is 36.4% from three. Only shot 55 three-pointers, but the foundation, I believe, is there. Now, AAU ball, he played in the Nike EYBL 16U, U16 circuit, played with the Indy Heat. Now, his team won the Peach Jam Championship. 9.6 points, 6.9 rebounds, 1.1 assists, and 1.4 blocks per game. So even though he's raw as a prospect, I think the offensive upside is there. It's just the consistency part of it has to get there. Like the physical tools, 6'7", 220 pounds with an insane motor. You can see why, even despite the ranking, Pat Kelsey took his commitment early. And we can get into the fan base complaints here in just a second. But in terms of a potential role here, going into his junior year, you wonder if he's going to grow anymore at 6'7". If he grows to be 6'9", 6'10", that could be huge. But I think he could be the ultimate glue guy. Crashes the boards well, plays with 110% effort. No one outworks him Everyone you talk to says the same thing. And if the offensive game gets more polished, if it gets refined, if Pat Kelsey and company can develop him, he could be a really solid player at the Power 5 level. Now, is he a guy that's going to come in right away and play major minutes? I don't think so. I think it's going to take him a season or a couple seasons to really develop, but who knows? There still is time for him to continue to get better and better. Maybe the conversation is different on November 21st, 2026, as opposed to it is right now. Now, I know that some in the fan base will be star chasing here. Ferlandes Wright is a 3-star prospect on 24/7 Sports, and I'm not sure that it's this commitment that has the fan base antsy. I think it's that Pat Kelsey whiffed on a good amount of key 2026 recruits, so you have that frustration boiling over into this situation. My rebuttal to the fan base's response, and it hasn't been everyone, it's just a couple people that I know, and I respect opinions, but this is just what I would serve as a rebuttal. A couple things, really 3. The first one is he's just now going into his junior season. There's exponential amount of growth that can happen over the next 2 years. If he's going into his senior year and we're talking about how raw he is as a prospect, maybe then the conversation and the tone changes. But as of right now, I'm not going to worry about it. I trust Pat Kelsey and company in the evaluation and scouting department and how meticulous they are. So, like I said, he could grow more. The 3-point shot could get more consistent, and his offensive game could develop more. Still have time. He's going to be playing against the best of the best, playing for La Lumiere this season. So the second thing is the potential. I mean, the upside is there. 6'7", 220 pounds. He's got the frame. He's got the tenacity. He's got the work ethic. He's got the ability to rebound, defend at a high level. And the foundation is there to where he can put the ball on the floor and take it to the basket. The third thing is I'm not sure that you're recruiting him to be a star. You see programs like Kansas and Houston almost every year recruit a player in the 100 to 175 range that you kind of do a double take when they get that commitment. And you're like, is this guy ever going to play for them? And then 2 years later, you're like, who is this guy? And then you go back and think, it's like, oh, he was the lower ranked guy that coaching staff believed on the potential and not the star ranking. And look at what happened now. They believed in their development process. It also goes without saying, he's ranked 149th now. But chances are, if he balls out this season for La Lu, he's going to rise up the rankings. He's a glue guy. He might not be a guy that averages 20 points a game on the prep stage, but I mean, he averaged, and I guess we have the conversation all the time about, well, what's the level of competition? When you play for Fairdale, when you play in the city of Louisville, you're playing against some solid teams. And as a sophomore, 18-13 on 61% shooting from the field and 36% from three. I know that the highlight reels, like there's a lack of highlight reels at the moment. I promise you, he's been more impressive to watch in full game settings than these highlight reels where, I mean, he's getting, a couple put back layups and there's been some free throws. So I think you have to keep expectations in mind here, of course. I'm not certain that Pat Kelsey is recruiting him to be like the starting power forward day one. But if you want roster continuity, I think this is the way you go about it. You recruit a player or a handful of players that maybe aren't highly ranked, but you best believe you believe in the skill set and the upward trajectory that you think you can develop and bring to the floor. So if Ferlandes Wright hits that potential, Pat Kelsey looks like a genius. Of course, there's risks involved, as there are with bringing in any recruit, right? I mean, number 149, is he Louisville level? I believe so. I think that he's going to be an ultimate glue guy. And if he can at some point become a key rotational player in this system, then hey, that's all you can ask for. And anything more than that, of course, is great to see as well. But let's put basketball talk off to the side for the moment. The Cardinals football team is looking to turn things around in a big way against SMU. And they're going to have to try to do so without some key players. Injuries are piling up. It's getting extremely frustrating. We'll tell you who popped up on the Cardinals injury report when we come back. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. Card Nation, college basketball is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually, getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping out of checkout, you name it. That's why I switched to Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time last night to check out some last-minute deals for Louisville, Cincinnati tonight, and the app made it super simple. I not only could see the exact view from the seat that I was buying, but I could also get the convenience of all the sections that you can look at in a convenient way. It's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've ever bought tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying college tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Terms apply. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen of the day. If you are a part of the Everydayer Club and you make Locked On Louisville part of your daily routine, welcome back. If this is your first time tuning in, hey, we are just glad that you are here. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services, including YouTube and TikTok, 5 days a week, your team every day. Thanks again for also making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. But back to the discussion. Louisville football back in action. Final road game in the regular season. They're going down to Dallas to play the SMU Mustangs. And if you want a full preview of that matchup, go to yesterday's show. I had a Locked On crossover episode with Locked On SMU. But the initial injury report was released on Thursday night. Now, we kind of got word leading up to it that there were going to be some key injuries, and they were confirmed. Here is who is out. Who you knew. Isaac Brown, Travis Egan, John Maurice Wilder, Shemai Gates, and then some others like Trent Carter, Tyler Fulmar. But here are two new names. Kewan Brown is out. So is Antonio Watts. And in the questionable section is quarterback Miller Moss. And this was something that I hadn't heard Kewan, but through the day, it got out on social media that there were rumblings that, hey, Miller Moss is in jeopardy of missing this game. Now, he isn't ruled out. There's a chance that he does play, but there is a chance that he does not play. And I'm not just kind of defining the questionable tag there, but it is a foot injury from what I've been told. And if Miller is able to go, you wonder with the running backs room so slim at the moment, what that offense is going to look like, especially with a foot injury that affects mobility. But if he's not able to go, then it's going to be up to Deuce Adams or Brady Allen. Who gets the nod there? That's the other big question. Of course, there's going to be gamesmanship. SMU is going to have to prepare for all three to do their due diligence. I would give the nod to Deuce. I think that Deuce should get the start because of the reasons that we talked about on Tuesday's show. And if you need to go back and tune into that, it's up on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Deuce Adams, you get a look at your potential future. I think he has the best arm, and he gives you that potential dual threat ability. Now, here's the other issue. Isaac Brown got hurt against Virginia Tech. Really weren't expecting him to play this game. Kewan Brown, after he had that play where he trucked the Clemson defender last Friday, he hobbled off the field. And I was hoping that it was nothing, but it seems like if that's the play that has led to this, regardless, he's out. Which sucks because Isaac Brown, your All-American, is out. Now Kewan Brown, who rushed for over 130 yards the past 2 weeks and has looked really, really good, now he's out. Now you're going to have to rely on Duke Watson to be your starter, and Duke has been banged up basically all season, so you're hoping that he is as close to 100% as possible. He's had a tough year. He's averaging under 3 yards per carry because he's not been 100%. And when he played early on, the offensive line was still trying to figure some things out. So SMU is a pretty stout rushing defense, pretty respectable, but you best believe that the Cardinals are going to try to establish the run. Here's the thing. Duke can't do it all by himself, but you just don't have that many options because not only is Isaac out, Kewan is out, but John Maurice Wilder, he's out. Jemai Gates, he's out. So there are 3 other options that you could go with. Sean Boykins, the wide receiver converted into a running back who's played a couple games this season, the North Hardin standout. He could be in line for some carries. I'd like to see Braxton Jennings get some carries, the walk-on from, I guess, Ashland Blazer. I think that's where he came from. But he had a couple solid performances early on in the season. He looked good in fall camp. And then you could also see Colin Lacey get some work in the Cardinals backfield. But there are so many moving parts, so many question marks. I've been told that this Louisville offense is just truly banged up. And you can tell. Look at who's out. Look at who's questionable. It sucks. It sucks to see because the personnel in this unit, when healthy, wild. Isaac Brown, Kewan Brown, they make a difference. They definitely do. There's another player, Antonio Watts, one of your best defenders, your starting guy at the Star. Backing him up is Nigel Williams, the transfer from, I think it's New Mexico State, if I'm not mistaken. But now you have to replace one of your best and most versatile defenders, not only in defending the pass, but the run as well. So it's just been a struggle, and the Cardinals are limping to the finish line. And no, I know what some have said on social media. Let's go ahead and put this to bed right away. This isn't a situation where guys are opting out with phantom injuries just because Louisville's season is, not able to get to the college football playoff or the ACC championship game. That is not the case. It is 100% false. I can confirm that. These are injuries. And it's unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate. But next man up mentality. You have to do what you can to turn things around against a pretty formidable opponent on Saturday. SMU and Louisville squaring off at noon down in Dallas on Saturday afternoon. Well, technically it's 11 Central Time, but if we're going by Eastern Standard Time, it is noon. So first thing we have to know is who's going to be the starter at quarterback. I'm not sure that we are going to know until maybe an hour before game time. It might not be the same throughout the game, depending on how it goes. But Duke Watson, this is a game for him to finally have his breakout of the 2025 season. Of course, it would come with 1 game remaining. I don't care at this point. Just get that breakout game. The Cardinals need it because I have my doubts that Louisville can go out there and handle an SMU defense, even though they're not great at defending the pass. Louisville's passing attack isn't really all that great at the moment. So if Louisville's struggling to run the football, can they beat SMU? I mean, it's possible, but will they is the larger question. And that I'm just not so sure. But we will react to the result when we come back on Monday. But before that game, the Louisville men's basketball team back in action after almost a week off defeating Ohio. They're going to play another Power 5 team. Louisville and Cincinnati reignite a former Big East rivalry. They will play up in Cincinnati. We'll preview everything you need to know about that game and why I believe Louisville is going to move to 5-0 on the season. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a larger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push like my Houston Rockets have done. They have been incredible to start the season. They just defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers in a very close game. Alperen Sengun has been very good to my team and to my FanDuel account. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I don't know about you all, but I found myself earlier this week, that episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Will Smith is in an empty room in the living room and he just throws his hands up and he's looking around. That's kind of like me. And I'm sitting there like, where's Louisville basketball at? Having almost a week off. I'm like, man, this sucks. It's nice to get some rest. Damn, this sucks as a fan. But Louisville back in action tonight, playing against Cincinnati in the Hoops Classic. This game being played at the Heritage Bank Center in Cincinnati, which is where I believe their hockey team plays, if I'm not mistaken. So it's technically a neutral site game, but let's call it how it is. It's basically a home game for the Bearcats. I found it pretty interesting that according to the title sponsor of the show, or one of the title sponsors of the show, FanDuel, the Cardinals are a 9.5-point favorite in this game. Like, Vegas really favors Louisville in this game. And this game will tip off at 6:30 p.m. Last year, Cincinnati was 19-16, 11-1 in non-con play. They kind of fell apart down the stretch. And the Cardinals, of course, went 27-8. But Cincinnati is 4-0 early in the season. Haven't really played a tough team yet. The best team that they played is Dayton. Dayton is 4-1. They did beat Marquette, so maybe Dayton is legit. They beat Dayton 74-62. That game was a little bit closer than the final score. They beat Western Carolina, Georgia State, and Mount St. Mary. In that final tune-up game before the Louisville game, they were trailing by 6 against the Mountaineers of Mount St. Mary's. They did end up winning by 17 points, but I found it pretty interesting that they were trailing by 6 going into the second half. Now, they are led by Baba Miller. Yes, that Baba Miller, the one that Louisville fans really wanted Pat Kelsey to go after when James Scott unexpectedly entered the portal at the 11th hour last spring. You remember that? Transferred over from Florida Atlantic after 2 seasons at Florida State, and he is Cincinnati's leading scorer. He is their leading rebounder. He's averaging 15.8 points a game, 10.5 rebounds. Not really shooting the ball well from 3. Cincinnati as a team, 29.9%, so not a great perimeter shooting team. Still a small sample size. We will have that conversation. Sound like a broken clock for at least the next month because of the sample size, but they also have another big man transfer over from UCF, Mustafa. I think it's Thiam, Thiam. Forgive me if I'm saying that incorrectly, but 11.5 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, 2.3 blocks, and 1.8 steals. This is a Cincinnati team that early on, they've been really effective defending, not only keeping teams in low scoring numbers, but also interior defense. They're averaging 6.3 blocks per game, 8.0 steals, very disruptive defense from Wes Miller's team. Will it be able to continue against one of the nation's best offenses? To be determined. In the backcourt, you've got Day Thomas, Sincere Harris, Kerr Kriisa, Sean Abayev. You've got some veteran guys. Sorry, I'm sitting there looking at where Day Thomas came from. Then I realized he's been at Cincinnati averaging double digits his whole career. Sean Abayev is a freshman. Sincere Harris, 1 year at Illinois, 1 year at West Virginia. And, of course, Kerr Kriisa, who was at Kentucky last year. He only played 9 games before getting hurt. This is his 6th season of college basketball, and this is his 4th team. So Cincinnati doesn't really have a deep rotation. They go about 8 deep in the rotation, as opposed to Louisville, close to about 10, maybe even 11. I think that what's going to help the Cardinals in this game is you're really going to watch a team try to wear down another team late in the game. With how quickly Louisville substitutes, with how frequently they do so, I think that this is an opportunity to prove that, hey, look, this conditioning level, this style of play, this pace of play is not for nothing. Watch what it's going to do to this Cincinnati team. And I think that one area that Louisville has a clear advantage is not only the backcourt. Louisville has the advantage in the backcourt, but also the second unit. We talk all the time about why your 6 through 10 matters, right? Who's coming off your bench? Does the level of production drop off when they come in the game? And for the Cardinals, that answer's really been no, because you can kind of piece together your rotation, and Pat Kelsey's continuing to figure things out. This team is fresh. They haven't played in almost a week. I like the Cardinals here. The one thing that I do wonder is, I think at the moment, this might be your biggest test from an interior defense perspective. Like, Louisville has done a good job at taking it to the basket. Ryan Conwell, Adrian Woolley, Michael Brown Jr. But now you're going up against Baba Miller, Mustafa Thiam. How do you sort of take those guys out of the paint? Probably a good amount of high ball screens. That's going to create some mismatches. Sananda Fruit. Time for a big game, my man. I think you could also see Kason Pryor more in this game. I think if he was fully healthy, this would be a great matchup for him against Baba Miller, who hasn't really shot the ball well from 3. And this Cincinnati team isn't really a good shooting team from 3. They don't shoot free throws well. In terms of field goal percentage, 44.3%. I'm looking for the Cardinals to wear Cincinnati out in the second half. They like to get some of their players in foul trouble. I think Louisville wins this game. Do they win it by 9.5 points? I think it's very possible. But my prediction is, even though Cincinnati's defense has been pretty solid, I still think Louisville scores over 80 points. So I'm going to go at it that way with my prediction. Louisville wins. They score over 80 points. They move to 5-0 and look forward to Thanksgiving week play. But like the football game, we're going to react to that result on Monday morning. That's going to wrap up this Friday edition of the show. Everyone have a great weekend. Go Cards.